Welcome, everyone, to Talks With Me, a podcast, entertainment edition, the only show that gives you the breakdown of a professional, media professional's journey on how they navigated the media industry and how they became who they are today. Today, we have an amazing guest, Essence Gant. She is a leading beauty, culture, and lifestyle journalist, a content creator, an entrepreneur, and an on-air talent. She previously held the role of beauty director at BuzzFeed and has worked with brands like Allure and Target. And today I'm so excited to talk to her about her journey and hear a little bit more about her work as an entertainment journalist and then turning into a full-time entrepreneur. Welcome, Essence.
Hi. Hey, Mia. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you saying yes, for sure.
Of course.
So we met for the first time through Allure when you were the talent for our pilot episode of Allure's Watch Day. Mm-hmm. And I just felt like when we got your casting and we did your casting call, I was like, oh, this is one. Like your energy just speaks for itself. Literally.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, have you always like wanted to be on television or in front of the camera? Has that always been a goal for you?
I didn't know, so yes and no. So I'm from a small town. I'm from Augusta, Georgia. So there's not like what I do now. It's just not a thing there. It wasn't when I was growing up, and I don't think it is even now. And so I was always attracted to media, to TV, to editorial magazines. I was always attracted to that. And I was like, oh, that would be nice. But I didn't really think it was like a real possibility, probably until I was like in college. So like, yes, I wanted to, but it was so far in the back of my mind. I was like, I'm just going to say I want to be a physical therapist because that sounds better and like more achievable coming from like a small town.
Practical. Yeah, I totally understand. I'm from a small town too in North Carolina. So It was just like, I was like, everything I want to do, I cannot do it here, unfortunately. And now I feel like we're in an era where you can do more things in small towns because of the internet and social media. But even those things of like being in entertainment, you still have to go to the big cities.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, remote working has made it easier, but it's like if you want to be a personality, then that's when it gets a little bit, or like if you want to work on a real set, even if you're behind the scenes, it's like you kind of need to be in a big city.
For sure. So I normally start my interviews off with this one question of how long has your journey been? How long has it taken you to get to where you are right now?
How long the journey has been, I feel like it's not even over, but if I had to like put it in some type of number, I would say it started my senior year of undergrad. So like 2009, when I was like, you know what? Because I went to school for social work. So I went from like, I'm gonna be a physical therapist to like, actually, no, I'm gonna be a social worker. And so like 2009, my senior year of college, I was like, this is not it. It's not what I want to do. I need to work in like media some type of way. And so I think that was like the beginning of the journey of just like admitting it out loud and being like, okay, and having that courage to just change course. So 2009, and what are we now? 2024, whatever that is. I don't know math, but.
So wait, what is that? About 15 years, right? Something like that.
Sure. I have no idea.
So let's talk about that journey a little bit. You worked as an intern, you worked predominantly with like some smaller brands, but like Black owned brands like Hot Care. And then you worked for Black Enterprise. And then you eventually got to BuzzFeed. Yeah. Would you consider BuzzFeed to be like the pivotal point in your career, the trajectory of your career?
Yeah, I think that was the turning point. Like, and all of it was so important, even interning, like that just really shaped me in so many ways. It gave me like confidence. It showed me very early on, like, this is what I like about the industry. This is what I don't like. Like, I love, how free it is and like accepting. And, it's like you can show up to work in jeans and a t-shirt. Like, you don't have to be all corporate. But I didn't like the thirstiness at events and stuff. I was just like, oh my gosh, like waiting outside of an event, like in a line. I'm like, I don't even go to the club. Like, this is not for me. Like, there were certain parts, like it let me know very early, like, okay, this is what I like. This is what I don't like. But it wasn't until BuzzFeed where I was like, okay, like the work is paying off. Like I'm getting somewhere. Because those earlier jobs, like, before Hype Hair, I was an intern for this amazing woman. Her name was Allison. She gave me my first opportunity. And I just basically updated her blog for her. And then after that, my very first like official job was Hype Hair, but I was an editorial assistant, a young girl from Augusta, Georgia, living in New York City. Well, at the time I was living in New Jersey, but literally same thing. The prices are the same, fresh out of school and making $30,000 a year. My first job, and mind you, at Hype Hair, the publisher, I forgot the name of like the publication company, the publisher company, but they own Hype Hair. They owned a bunch of books, but I worked on two, which was Hype Hair and Today's Black Woman Style Report magazine. So I was the editorial assistant for two magazines,
only making
$30,000 a year. Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah. So I was like, that's not that glamorous. This is not like the movies. But BuzzFeed was definitely like the turning point. I was like, okay.
No, I think that's so important what you said about like really learning, like these opportunities allowed you to learn what you do and don't like, because I don't think people realize there's a big difference between like a red carpet personality interviewer versus like being a podcast host that's one-on-one with people. Because I agree with you. I don't care to be on the red carpet and like having to call out the celebrities' names, having to try to get their attention, trying to come up with the most original questions so they actually want to talk to you over again.
Yeah.
Like it's a hustle. It's a job in itself.
It's a hustle. I agree.
Yeah. So when you got that role at BuzzFeed as beauty editor, can you just break down like what that role was and what are some of the misconceptions when it comes to being a beauty editor or a beauty journalist?
Yeah. So when I first got that role, at the beginning, there was also another beauty editor there. And so they wanted someone who could create multicultural content. Basically, they wanted diversity to the beauty content. And so that was my job. And it basically entailed like your typical, like whenever you go to like Allure or whatever beauty publications, Glamour, and you see like these are the 10 matte lipsticks under $20 that'll whatever. So it was like that. Those types of traditional beauty posts and articles. But also in addition to that, I had to think so nuanced about every single thing. Like, okay, how do we also diversify this? Like, how do we make the same list, but also throw in Black owned brands and Asian owned brands and Latina owned brands? And then also like when we show the color on the models, how do we make sure we're including, women, men, non-binary, plus size, straight size, like just thinking about it so much more nuanced than the way that beauty was being conveyed so traditionally up until that point. And so it was interesting. It was a lot of pressure because BuzzFeed also is a digital platform. And when I was at BuzzFeed, I was kind of like in the height of things when BuzzFeed was BuzzFeed. So traffic was everything. And so it was so funny because I remember having so many conversations with like my team, and we would get these messages from higher ups, like we need to hit this traffic. And I would very vocally be like, me writing a story is not the same as, oh, girl writing the story, because she can do a post and it's nothing in there, but like straight size, blonde, white girls. And that's going to hit every time because that's what people have perceived beauty content to be. So they're going to click it every single time. But I have to be more nuanced about it. So what we're not going to do is give me the same traffic goals and use that to measure my performance when you're giving me something that y'all have not been doing. Like it really hasn't been done like that before. And you don't have this audience because you haven't been speaking to this audience. So I'm literally building an audience and talking to an audience that you don't have yet, that does not exist. And so it was very interesting. It was a lot of pressure. And for a very long time, I really felt like I was failing. And I kid you not, Mia, it was not until probably like mid last year and really heavily like December and of last year and the little bit of January that we've had, that I had a moment and I was like, yo, I was really the ish. I'm like making sure I don't.
Yes.
But I was like, no, I was really doing that. Like I literally, because I'm building my portfolio right now. So I was going back and looking at some of my like really big stories. And I was like, to be so young in that role at that time and just have so much pressure and feel like you're just not delivering really took a toll on my mental health. But now that I've looked back on it, I'm like hugging my, like, you know, that version of myself. Like, no, girl, you were doing the damn thing. Like you really were doing it.
Yeah. And what year was this that you were started at BuzzFeed?
I was there in 2015. So from 2015 to 2021. 2021 is when I left, January. Yeah.
That says a lot because I feel like that was kind of like the one of the peaks of the natural hair movement. Because I remember when I went to college, it was like 2012 was when I started transitioning, or like no, 2010 was when I started transitioning. And so by 2015, it's like Black hair, natural hair is a thing, you know, mainstream. Even though all of these publications are not spotlighting it and highlighting as much, but we know it's a thing. So yeah.
Yeah. And I was writing those stories and telling, which I will say they were welcoming. It wasn't like, fortunately, because I've heard horror stories from some of my peers who were at like legacy publications being like, child, me trying to write about a wash and go is like me fighting for women's rights. Like it's really, really hard. And I was like, so for me, it wasn't that bad. Like I could write about it, but then you have to measure me according to, you know, the audience you built. You weren't talking to this audience before. And so I take a lot of credit for the Black audience, beauty audience anyway, at BuzzFeed when I was there. Like when we did start getting those hits and we were writing a story with nothing but Black girls and it was nothing but natural hair in it and it's getting 700,000 clicks. Like I did that. Like y'all was that before. So yeah, like now I can confidently like pop my shit. But at the time I was like, I suck. I'm a failure.
That's so interesting. I'm glad you're in a space now though, that you're able to like see your greatness, because I think a lot of us do that. Like women, Black women, we get to that imposter syndrome and it takes a while for us to be like, nah, like I was worthy of the position to begin with. And I actually exceeded the expectations. But what would you say was like your biggest lesson though during that time working at BuzzFeed?
Oh, I know I have so many lessons. One of the biggest lessons during my time at BuzzFeed, probably nobody knows everything. And so when you're in this room, because also keep in mind, it's not a lot of Black editors there at the time. So I'm one of few. I'm trying to even think, like I can think of one other Black editor that was there, like when I was there, that was like where we were like pretty much peers, on the lifestyle and like entertainment side. News, I'm not so much sure, but it wasn't a lot. So I remember like being in meetings and being very reserved, and I'm not necessarily the most quiet person. So when I am, you can tell I'm either I just don't trust what's going on, or I'm very uncomfortable, or maybe a mix of both. But I would be so quiet in meetings, like, okay, I'm out of place. Everyone else is getting like 3 million views on one post and whatever. And I often, like you said, you know, before I dealt with imposter syndrome a lot. And I think the more I sat in those meetings and the more I heard people talk, like people who were way more senior than me, like I'm talking about C-suite, people who had been there longer, people who on paper, like traffic wise, were doing better than me. The more they talked, I realized like, oh, they be saying real dumb stuff. Like they say a lot, like it's okay. Like Essence, you do not have to know everything, and you don't have to like have the right answer every time you speak. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to not know something. It's okay to think you know, and then later find out like, okay, maybe I should have went about this a different way. Like messing up is okay, and not knowing everything is also okay, because the people that you think have it all together and the people who get to advance and all of these things, that is not, rarely is that reflective of their competence and their skill. It's usually a reflection of their privilege. And so that was one of my biggest lessons. And I feel like I learned it more so when I left, probably towards the end of me being there, but when I left. But I remember being in meetings with like real executives and they say stuff and I'd be like, this is probably the dumbest that you could have said at this moment. And here you are, this very wealthy, high up executive of this huge digital media platform. And I got real good ideas and I'm over here scared to speak. And I was like, yeah, we're not doing that no more.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you said that. So let's talk a little bit about the transition from corporate to being an entrepreneur. Like what made you decide to leave? And then what, I guess, also break down kind of the work that you're doing now.
Yeah. So when I left BuzzFeed, it was January 2021, and I actually went to another startup for about like 9 months. It was called it's called Pros. They're still around, Pros Hair. And I was the director of ad studio there. So like overseeing social ads and things like that. I was only there literally 9 months. I was in and out. I was like, okay, the people were great. I have no complaints about the people, but I was like, this is just not for me. I don't like it. It's also a very small startup. I have to put in a little bit more work than I want to do at this point in my career. Like I'm not trying to start from the bottom again with no resources, building something out of nothing. So I was like, okay, no, I'm straight. And that's when actually my mom, we were on FaceTime one day and I was so miserable. And my mom was like, honey, the light in your eyes is gone. And I was like,
oh, Mom.
I was like, okay. Also, one thing to know about my mom, she is probably the most dramatic person I know. And I say that with love. Like I love her with everything in me, and her theatrics are very funny, but also like, but she was right. Like I was genuinely depressed. Even one of my good girlfriends, we had went to like New Orleans and she was like, girl, you were like depressed in New Orleans. You need to leave that job. And I was like, dang, like everyone around me can tell, even though I think I'm masking it. And I think that was the like turning point for me to just take a risk and step out on faith. And so I was like, okay, I didn't have it all figured out. I still don't have it all figured out, but I was like, I know a lot. I've made a lot of contacts. Let me try to basically do what I'm doing for other company, like for my employers, and do it for myself, and work with different brands. And so that's what I did. And my very first I guess, gig as an entrepreneur was with Target. So Melinda Lee, who was the chief of media brands at BuzzFeed when I was there, at the time she had left and she was working with a Canadian production company called Stage 10. And so I had asked her to be my mentor because she's like absolutely brilliant. So she was like, hey, we're about to work with this project for Target. I think you would be great for it. And I was like, okay, great. And so that was the first thing, which was like a pretty big deal for my first, project to be with this huge brand. And I feel like everything from there just started opening up. So I've done everything from like script writing for live streams, which is what I did for Target, some casting work for live streams, lots of writing. A lot of it has been in the writing and like creative space, but any kind of creative need, whether it's writing, casting, I always say like, I just help people tell their stories.
Nice. I love that. And I feel like I'm also in this phase of like betting on myself. And I really do believe once you really bet on yourself, like doors and opportunities will open up for you. But when it comes to like working in the beauty space, and of course now you're working on your own, but how have you experienced prejudice? And primarily when it comes to partnering with beauty brands, how do you deal with it if you have experienced that?
Yeah, I honestly think whether you realize you're dealing with it or not, you are. Like, I just think to be a woman of color, you're going to deal with prejudice in any industry. Beauty and media are no different. And I think sometimes even more so because historically, at least in the US, beauty has been very white and beauty media has been very white. So I'm a Black girl. I'm a Southern Black girl. So I'm country as hell. I'm a dark-skinned Black girl. I'm a natural hair Black girl. And you're going to get this fro every time unless it's like blown out because I need a trim. But for the most part, like this is the package. And this is not what a beauty girl or a beauty editor is supposed to look like historically. And so I think for me, the prejudice has shown up in ways like having to overly articulate and convince you why I'm worthy of a promotion or like why I can do a job. I will never, ever forget a conversation I had, and I've never told this story, but yeah. So it was towards the end of my time at BuzzFeed, and a lot of things we went through, a lot of restructures. My new boss, oh my gosh, she was amazing. Loved her down. Her name was Ashley. She was absolutely incredible. But she reported to the SVP of our department. And so I remember it was maybe like 2020-ish, 2019, maybe 2019. And I was really hoping I wanted to move to LA. I was like, I think I want to change. Like I want to move to LA. And we had a BuzzFeed has an office in LA too. So I was like, I want to move to LA. And a role had opened up in LA that was more on the video side. So like a video person to oversee still like as is, which was the beauty vertical. And I was like, oh, I can do that. Like they're not looking for a shooter and an editor. They're looking for someone to oversee, to manage the team, to,
a creative producer.
A creative producer, come up with ideas, all that stuff. And I'm like, I've done that here in New York. All the ideas that I've pitched in New York have 1 million views plus. Like, so yeah, like I have ideas, like I can do this. So I'm telling this to my boss's boss, and he's like, you just don't have the experience. And this is also when I knew it was like time for me to start leaving, because when my mouth starts getting like, when I stop caring how I deliver stuff, that's when I know it's time for me to exit. So I told him, I was like, well, tell me how you did it, because you started as a receptionist and now you're an SVP. Like you started answering the phones and now you're my boss's boss. So you didn't have that experience. So tell me about your trajectory. Since we talk about experience, like, and I think about that experience like a lot. And I'm just like, if I was a white girl, would you say that? Because I know, before the restructure, my boss was a white girl and she was doing, her hands was in so many pots and she wasn't qualified to do all the things that she was doing. So I think for me, prejudice has shown up like not being afforded the same opportunities, like having to prove yourself. So-and-so didn't have to prove themselves. Like, but I have actual receipts and you're not considering them. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was stuff, I think it shows up like that, like having to prove yourself in a way that is like, one, damn near impossible, because I can't prove myself until you give me the opportunity. And then also just like this unfair metric because you let so-and-so do it. And the only difference I can think of is because she's a white girl.
Yeah. And let's also be real about the fact that most companies want their employees to be proactive. You know what I'm saying? Like they want you to do more than they're paying for. So the fact that you're also like trying to do other things within the company, I don't know. I feel like that should show initiative and at least give me the opportunity to work on a set to show that I'm capable before you give me the role.
Yeah, something. Come up with the solution. Like, give me something. Like, even if you truly believe I'm not ready yet, that's fine. But help me get ready. Like, pour into me, because I've seen you do it with these other girls, and the only difference is race.
Ooh, that's triggering, because I've also gone through an experience like that. But we won't get into that today. But so let's transition into your biggest boss move. What do you feel like so far has been one of your biggest boss moves within your career?
Oh, I think my biggest boss move as an entrepreneur or like total?
I mean, if you want to give me both, that's cool. But either way,
I'll do both. So my biggest boss move when I was working for another company was probably BuzzFeed, when I became the beauty director. And I remember when we launched the beauty platform, I was the face of it, which is low-key, I'm getting triggered again because I'm like, how I'm the whole face, but I'm not qualified. But anyway, so when we launched the beauty platform, which was called As Is, and I was the face of it. And I wrote the opening letter, like the editor's letter, and they put my actual photo on this huge like billboard size, whatever, in the LA office. Like I was literally the face, and I was just like, it was very much a proud moment for me. And because yes, it was a personal accomplishment, but it was also like, I don't know, the last time I saw a Black girl beauty editor at a huge publication like that, who looked also the way I looked, who was like, okay, natural hair, dark skin, big old hoops. Like, I still remember the photo. Like, my hoops were bigger than these hoops. Like, they were massive. And I was just like, this is really dope because, again, like, I'm not going to compromise and change, to fit into the narrative of what historically this role has looked like. I'm just going to show up and be my country Black girl self, and I'm still going to be the face of this huge beauty brand at this, huge digital publication. And I think that was like probably my biggest boss move. That, and also I named that platform, which is a whole other story, because they really ignored me. It was like literally months when we were talking about, okay, what are we going to call this new platform? What are we going to call this new platform? And we were going through so many meetings. And I was like, I remember one meeting, it was a brainstorm. We had to write these names down. And so I wrote down as is, because I'm like, okay, I'm from the South, and I'm thinking about when you go to church on Sunday, it's like, come as you are, like God accepts you no matter what. And I'm like, okay, but like, how do we make it beauty, and how do we make it catchy and buzzy and like diverse? So I was like, okay, as if, like Clueless. And I was like, oh, as is, like you're fine as is. Like, we're not trying to tell you to change. We're just saying, come as you are. You're the authority on you. Like, if you want to wear glitter eyeshadow, that's cool. We're just going to tell you how to do it and the products to get. And if you want to wear matte eyeshadow, also cool. We're going to tell you what to do. Like, we're not telling you what's in and out. We're just telling you, giving you the tools to be your best self. And so I named the platform. It was ignored. It was not until literally, I think that was like maybe September of, let's say 2017 or 2018. I think 2017. And then 2018, like early January, we were having all these meetings because they were like, okay, we still haven't like named this platform. And so one of the guys in either marketing or sales had, called this big meeting because we still needed a name. And he was like, all right, here's the doc from the names that we passed on, but we're still, we still think it's something there. We can maybe play off of them. And As Is was on it. Do you know another group when it got time to like present the names, they presented the name As Is. They were like, this was on the doc. We think it's good or whatever. And I'm sitting in there like, you have got to be kidding me. Mia, we had hired outside consultants like to name this brand just to end up with the name that I gave you months prior. And I'm like, when are y'all going to learn to listen to Black women? Like, it was such a triggering experience. Anyway, you didn't ask for that, but I just thought that So that was probably the biggest boss move. And then as an entrepreneur, it was definitely recently, I was featured in Essence magazine. And that's that's a Black girl's dream publication. Yes. I was like, and my name is Essence. I was like, so shouts out to Keely King, who is the beauty editor over at Essence. But that was dope just to be in print of Essence magazine and like have a big, that like I'm on a whole page 22, January, February 24 issue. So
let's get into that. How did that opportunity even come about?
I was at a beauty event over the summer last year and I met Akili there. And so we, followed each other on social or whatever. And then she reached out to me, I want to say maybe around like November of last year, and was like, hey, we're starting this new hair series in our print publication called 4C Hair Files. And we think you would be great to kick it off. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to. And so I just wrote, how I get my perfect braid out and sent him my photos, but I did not know it was going to come out like that. So when I saw it, I was like, this is pretty dope.
It was really awesome. I was hoping you would say that was your biggest boss move because I wanted to talk about it. That was so great. Okay, so one of our segments I do, how do I do something? So it's how do I do it segment. So I would love to know, you previously stated that you don't stay up on makeup trends, but you do stay up on like viral beauty moments. So how do you stay on top of industry trends, and like what influencers are you following, or what outlets and publications do you follow?
I'm going to be real. I probably go to TikTok before I go to the publications these days because it's so many, like it's so much diverse so much diversity on there. And so I mean, obviously I love Jackie Aina. She's like one of the trailblazers for beauty influencers. Why can I not think of anybody else at the moment? I love Jackie Aina. I'm like, I follow so many people, but I can't even think. But TikTok has become a real resource for me because it also shows you like what people are doing in real life, not just what an editor says you should be doing because of what they learned at Fashion Week.
Also, speaking of Jackie Aina, I saw that supposedly Black luxury is like on its way out. Do you agree or disagree?
I don't think it's on its way out. No, I think Black luxury, first of all, has been around, and I don't think it's going nowhere anytime soon because Black people like to look good and feel good. So we can always have our hair done, our nails done, even though mine are busted right now. But like, that's not, we too fly of a people for Black luxury to go anywhere. It's staying.
Yeah. And if anything, it's just going to evolve. You know what I'm saying?
It's going to evolve. Yeah.
Okay. So final segment, I love to ask these 3 questions. What do you regret? What do you hope for? And what do you want to manifest and receive? So for you, what do you currently regret?
I regret being so hard on myself, I think, in the beginning of my career. Like, it was not productive at all. I wish that I would have gotten in therapy sooner and had more healthy tools to just navigate the imposter syndrome and just the feeling of being like the only one, because I was the only one. Like, so I regret being so hard on myself. I should have been way gentler and kinder to myself during my early.
I love that. What do you hope for?
I hope for fairness. Just like be fair. Like, if you're a beauty company and you're working with influencers and you know that the budget is this, be transparent about that with the influencers. Even if you got to text them, even if you got to email them privately from your personal email, find a way, just be fair. Like, it's very easy to do. And so that's what I want. And whether you're an influencer, if you're a beauty editor, if you work in the beauty closet as an intern, just like be fair to people, be fair.
Yeah. And what do you want to manifest and receive?
I want to manifest a brand that brings people genuine joy, a brand that is relatable, and a brand that is actually serving in some way, whether you just feel like, okay, I feel seen, or whether you're like, oh, snap, like, I didn't know that you could achieve a fuller braid out this way. Like, I just want to be of service in some kind of way to bring joy, and also to a brand that is strong enough where opportunities flow to me and I don't have to hustle to go get them.
Yes. I pray that you receive that as well. Thank you so much, Essence, for speaking to me and being so open. I really appreciate the conversation.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And I'm sorry for all my rambling. I'm going to work.
No, it was perfect.